Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call this meeting of the Renfrew County Housing Corporation to order on Wednesday, March the 9th at 1 p.m. As we gather this afternoon, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Has roll call been taken, Wendy?
Yes, Mr. Chair, roll has been taken.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we will move on to the adoption of the minutes of the meeting held on February the 9th, 2022. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we have no delegations at this time. We will move on to the director's report. And Director Lapine, please go ahead.
Thank you and good afternoon, members of the Renfrew County Housing Board of Directors. Nice to see you all again. My report begins on page 3 of your electronic package, and I have one item that I'd like to speak to you about, and this one is a resolution. So Chair, may I go ahead and read the resolution?
Yes, please go ahead.
So it's item number 1, and the recommendation is that the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors recommends that the Community Services Committee supports the position of the Development and Property Committee that staff be directed to proceed with negotiating the proposal submitted by William Sons, Petawawa, Ontario for RFP-DP-2022-01 design build of an affordable multi-residential housing project. So the background, as you may recall, back in December, we came to this board and presented to you that we have an opportunity to build some supportive and affordable housing units here in the city of Pembroke. At that time, an RFP was approved to be released. We received 2 proposals that were complete. One from Butcon Construction and one from William Sons Limited. So back on March 1st, a selection committee, which consisted of Paul Morrow, the CAO, Craig Kelly, the Director of Development and Property, Kevin Raditz, the Manager of Real Estate, and myself, we met to discuss the proposals, go through some independent scoring, and then submit that back to proceed with a recommendation that Williams and Sons Limited best fit what we were looking for in terms of scope and the overall project. Now, unfortunately, the budget that was presented in the proposal exceeds the current budget estimate, and we are recommending that a meeting be held with the proponent to discuss the revision of the scope, a review of the budget, determine how some efficiencies could be obtained, and also look at what the next steps would be, which would include a business plan, if required, to find funds to ensure that the project can move forward. So we are bringing this forward to this board and then community services as well. And I also have pictures that I'd like to show the board of what the proposed drawings are. Chair, would you like me to go ahead and do that, or do you want to proceed with the resolution first?
Let me get a mover and a seconder first, and then we'll proceed. Moved by Councillor Reinwald, seconded by Councillor Love. Okay, thank you. And yes, please go ahead.
So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to need to hear from one of you if you see what I'm showing. And these are just drawings that have been set up. Of course, we have final negotiations still to proceed with, so some things could change, but this is what I'd like to share with you right now. Can you see the picture that I've put up?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to show you a few drawings. These, as you may recall from our discussion in December, we're looking at 2-bedroom units. We are looking at units that have a fair amount of accessibility built into them, so they're all ground level. And this would be located on our Lee Douglas Street here in Pembroke. So I'll just go through a few pictures. As you can see, these are all independent units, all attached together. That would be an end unit. This is a look of the 7 units, because the building is 6 units, 7 units in total. We talked about a supportive housing office hub environment. So it consists of 7 actual units. And I hope, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to blow it up a bit more. I don't know if I'm going to be successful. Oh, whoops. I don't know if you can see the layout, but we have a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, a bedroom. We have a mechanical room, a bathroom, and another bedroom here. So just so that you see the footprint of the design. Everybody see that okay? Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop sharing and open to returning to the report. Thank you.
So questions or comments? The design looks really, really nice. Councillor Reinwald.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. The design looks awesome. I think it fits in very nicely. You know, being like a slab on grade with a single floor, I think it's absolutely fantastic. The only concern that I have is especially with the what you mentioned that the prices that came in were somewhat higher than what was expected, and they're going to do some costing reviews. The only thing I would suggest, I ran into a situation years ago in my other world called work, where we had to do a similar thing like that. And one of the things that was cut back on was the HVAC system, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. It's a different application, but as it turned out, we had nothing but trouble with that HVAC system from the day it was installed and until the day I retired from the place. But that's the only word of caution that I would like to suggest, is that if you are going to be doing, trying to do some re-engineering or whatnot, that you may want to be cautious on certain things. Like you can buy shingles for 25 years or you can get them for 10 years, sort of thing. So sometimes it bites you short term down the road. So that's my only word of caution when sort of looking at re-engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reinwald. Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to support Councillor Reinwald's position, because if we are looking at cutting back in the design, I would hate to lose energy efficiencies or also lose accessibility. For example, making doorways smaller because they're standardized and easier to and cheaper to purchase. So I guess I'm asking, are you going to do a costing that's going to give you a sense of what it's also going to cost to operate the facility, right? Because if you're cutting back things that are related to energy efficiency or to the quality of the materials going into it, in the long run, it may cost more. So it might be better for us to have a plan to find the additional funds and have some very good housing options here that are energy efficient and quality construction, quality materials, because it'll in the long run save a lot of money. So I'm just echoing what Councillor Reinwald has said and hoping that we would look to other possibilities for funding rather than end up in a position where we had less quality and in the end paid more. Thank you.
Yeah,
Through
Ms.
you, Chair.
Lapine, Yes, and maybe Mr. Kelly would have something to add as well after. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and through you to the board, I'd like to just mention that we are looking at a business plan for the additional funds because we do feel that while, you know, the both proposals came in with the higher than the amount we budgeted. So we realize the cost of building right now is reflective in that. We are looking at additional funds, but I do feel that my colleague Craig Kelly from Development and Property would be better suited to answer the questions or comments regarding efficiencies, HVAC systems, and others. He'll be leading the conversation with the developer, so I'll maybe ask Mr. Kelly to speak to that if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kelly, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to let Kevin handle this all, but anyway, I'll answer the questions now. I just write the RFPs. The slab on grade offers us a level of efficiency that we haven't seen in other buildings. I mean, don't forget, most of our buildings are built, oh my gosh, the 70s, 80s, and even before that. So amongst all of our assets at the Renfrew County Housing Corporation, this will be by far the most efficient, and that's what we're striving to achieve. Whether net zero or not, we're still working out those details. But I think on the question of finding efficiencies, and Laura touched on it perfectly, we're still building a business plan and still searching for additional funds than our allocated budget allowed from the get-go. If you remember the design from when Laura showed it to you, there were 6 units plus 1 supportive unit. So seven units, if you will, across the whole design. So where we are looking for a scope review is, do both bedrooms need as much accessibility as they have? I believe so we don't want to cut that. The 7th unit, does it need to be a 2-bedroom? Can we make it a 1-bedroom and some office space for the supportive housing unit? So we're looking at those type of things. You know, how much civil work needs to happen or doesn't need to happen. It's a green field where we're designing, but I mean, it's a bit of a slope and we still need to provide parking. So still lots of work to happen to get to that Class B estimate on actually getting a contract in front of council for the consideration. So we're hopeful to move forward with Williamson's. But definitely your points are well taken, that we're not looking at building for the sake of building. We want to build these for a long period of time. And trust me, we want buildings that will have little to no maintenance over the course of the short term and have them exist at least for a period of years. So Kevin will be with us for a long time and not looking to repair these every 6 months. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councillor Grills.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that our municipality is in the middle of, for us, 2 very big builds in our municipal hall and library. And we are in inflationary times, and we have to recognize that for certain. You know, what we were pretty sure of, we have our contractors coming back to us, and as they uncover things, you know, the dollars go up. But I would trust, and I know I can trust Director Kelly and Ms. Lapine to do the best for not only the people who are going to live in those units, but for the taxpayer. So I really appreciate, and I can understand. I can understand how you're feeling when things come back to you and it's not exactly what you planned in the first place. But thanks a lot.
Thank you. Councillor Aguirre.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I remember that this project was time sensitive, if I can recall, and I'm just wondering if this will be back to County Council by the end of March. Like, will you have had that meeting with the contractor in the next couple of weeks and be back to County Council at the end of March, or do we know is there a new timeline? Thank you.
through you, Chair, to Councillor Regier, you raised some good points, and timeline is correct. You are right. It's very time sensitive. What we're recommending is that we bring this back in April, I believe, that we would have an opportunity at that point to have done some negotiations. But we'll have to see what we can achieve in the next short while. Again, I would turn to Mr. Kelly, because I believe that was the recommendation through Development and Property as well yesterday, that we're looking at a full package to committees and council in April.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Regier. Yeah, well, it'd be nice to come back to March. So we're stuck in process right now, right? I mean, that's the difficult reality of government. So as you're all aware, we made a recommendation yesterday at the Development Property Committee that requires County Council to move forward with our recommendation. So here we are in that loop. We don't have the direction of County Council to move forward officially on negotiation until March the 30th. But I'll let you know that we're working with this proposal as much as we can to try to get the information as quick as we can in April. And my boss isn't here, but I would suggest, if possible, we try to do something special in April to get this out in time, because April, we still have to get site plan approval, we still have to get building permits, and still need to get people in beds at the end of March of 2023. So it's going very quickly. So the longer we hold out, it's going to get worse. So that's our goal.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councillor Reinwald.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be short and sweet. As far as the timeline, if there's an issue with that, can we not hold we can have a special meeting, for that specific purpose, if we have to and the time is tight. That was one point I wanted to mention. And Councillor Grills brought up a very good point with the material costs. I have a son who's in the electrical contracting business, and he can't believe the way the prices are going up, if he can even get the components. So it's going to be a tough go there. One thing that sort of struck to my mind was it's going to be a complete slab on grade. I know I'm probably getting too far into the weeds. Is there any consideration with utilizing in-floor heating? I know a few people who have put that in their homes and even in their garages, and they're very, very pleased with it. And the cost to operate is quite low, and it's completely, away from, you can't see it, and they find it works very, very well. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, no, it's okay to get in the weeds a little bit. That is, the proposal is to do in-floor heating, zoned in-floor heating. Obviously, so each unit would have its own heating source. Where we're, gosh, I don't have it right in front of me. Getting into the design a little bit is on whether the same system will also power the domestic hot water through a natural gas solution. So the domestic hot water or a small boiler system would do the in-floor as well as the domestic hot water. That would be a preference. We just have to watch costs and maintenance and all those as well. But to address some of your other questions, the easy one first, costs are out of control and supply is worse. And that is going to be something we'll have to monitor. I hope the province will be sympathetic to that as we move forward. I'm crossing my fingers, and we'll see how that goes. I know we've already got extensions and whatnot. And of course, there's a provincial election in 2 or 3 months. So, right, so that we'll see what that happens there too, and a municipal election for that matter this fall. On the issue of a special meeting, again, our boss isn't on the call. We're running into a funny time. At the end of March, we're back in person, if you recall, with County Council. Will be our first meeting, and our procedural bylaws will have to be reviewed on whether a special meeting could be done virtually or would have to be done in person. So the timing isn't there for everything now to suggest that we could continue with virtual. So that's all these things that Paul and the senior leadership team are continuing to assess and provide recommendations on moving forward after basically after all the lifting of all the emergency orders. So it's one of those perfect storms, sir, that we're trying to work our way through.
So just a thought for Mr. Kelly and Ms. Lapine. On the 23rd, we do have a special meeting scheduled. Is this something that could be added to that agenda? No.
No, sir. No, a special council meeting is the requirement just to have a single item, and that single item is being discussed on the 23rd.
Well, I thought it was a good plan. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll ask for the vote on the recommendation. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to the manager's report of housing and homelessness, please. Ms. Dombrowski.
Good afternoon. The report begins on page 5 of your package. And there's one information item that I would like to share with the board. It concerns a review of administrative positions in the Renfrew County Housing Corporation. The most recent collective agreement between CUPE, Local 4425, and the County of Renfrew included a letter of understanding where both parties agreed to work collaboratively to review the administrative job classifications and to streamline some of the administrative processes. So I wanted to provide an update as to where we are with that. Accomplishments to date include team discussions about ways to realign job duties and improve responsiveness and proactiveness regarding our client services. Training has been underway during team meetings to help increase shared knowledge about various processes. We have also started to work on a pilot to trial the case management model that we're hoping to move towards. And with that model, there'll be a focus on providing supports for life stability, with a focus, of course, on housing stability. And once everything is implemented, we would hope to see a very streamlined process where a tenant would work with one of our staff from start to finish throughout the life of their tenancy, from signing the lease, from doing their annual information reviews and updates or any modifications that would be required. Identifying work orders that might come up, and even, working on personal issues or mitigating other issues that may come up within their neighborhood or their tenancy. So this is a big undertaking, and the staff are right on board with seeing this through. Some of the next steps we have identified include ongoing evaluation and adjustments regarding the pilot. We would hope to broaden the scope of the pilot. So for now, we're starting the pilot at the Pembroke site, and we would hope to broaden that to our Renfrew and Pryor sites, and then have more staff onboarded on to that. And of course, continued team cross-training. Within our team, we're also looking at continued professional development, really focusing in on mental health and life stabilization supports. Team collaboration is important and will continue to be present. And eventually, we're hoping that this will all culminate to an update of job descriptions within the administrative positions. And that concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dombrowski. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the report as presented? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So then we'll move on to the report from our Manager of Real Estate. And Mr. Raditz, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the committee, good afternoon. The real estate report is found on page 7, information item number 1, and the attached appendix. It's just a quick update and it's a brief report, but it's in reference to the 6 carryover projects from last year that started late in Q4. And as you can see, the first line item for the Vimy family townhouse project pertaining to the porches and canopies, both phases were at about 80% completion, and we anticipate that these 2 phases will be completed late April or early May. The next project for the Bronx and Reynolds Pembroke units, the windows replacements at the townhouses. That project is at 95% completion. And in fact, I believe next week that should be 100% complete. The next project for 260 Elizabeth in Pembroke for the window replacement, that's at about 20% completion. And we anticipate 100% completion probably by the end of April. The next project for 260 Elizabeth and for the brick repairs, that is completed. 425 Nelson project, that is completed. And then the last remaining project is the fencing project for the Nelson Street complex. We're at about 60% completion. And again, we anticipate about 100% completion in mid Q2. And Chair, that is the report for the real estate.
Thank you, Mr. Kaditz. So can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the report as presented? Moved by Councillor Grill, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Are there any comments or questions? It looks like progress is really come along well in spite of the weather and the cold winter we've had. So that's good to see. Were there any tenants that had any issues or concerns during that construction?
To my knowledge, there was, of course, there's probably some inconveniences for some of the tenants, but for the most part, the feedback that we received from the contractors, there was considerable cooperation with the tenants. Thank you.
Good news. So I'll call for the vote to adopt the report as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Is there any new business? Seeing none, we have no closed meeting. The date of our next meeting will be Wednesday, April the 13th. And I'll need a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are adjourned. So we'll move into our Community Services Committee reports as well. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, I'll need a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the meeting held on February the 9th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. So we'll move on to the department report. And Ms. Lapine, are you starting that, or are we going right to Ms. Patrick?
No, I'll start on the department report. If you're okay with that, Chair?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Community Services Committee. I have my report. I have 2 items. You will find it on page 3 of your electronic package. And the first item is a resolution. This will sound very familiar, seeing as we discussed it very recently in the Renfrew County Housing Board of Directors meeting. Chair, may I read the resolution recommendation, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the recommendation, and it's about the design build of an affordable multi-residential housing project. And the recommendation states that the Community Services Committee supports the position of the Development and Property Committee that staff be directed to proceed with negotiating the proposal submitted by William Sons, Petawawa, Ontario for RFP-DP-2022-01 design build of an affordable multi-residential housing project. The background is attached to this document. And I will just quick highlight, we did discuss it in Renfrew County Housing Board, but in the, just as a recap, in the December meeting of Community Services, approval was provided and staff were directed to issue an RFP for the construction of at least 6 new units that would be affordable and supportive that would be built on our Lee Street and Douglas Street location, which is property currently owned by Renfrew County Housing Corporation. We did receive the 2 proposals, and the 2 proposals were reviewed by a selection committee that identified Paul Morrow, CAO, Craig Kelly, Director of Development and Property, Kevin Raditz, Manager of Real Estate, and myself. And we came back with apparently very close call. Both proposals were very good, but we had recommended that William Sons best fit the scope and what we were looking for. As discussed in the previous meeting, there is a budget issue that we will be dealing with. So as part of the negotiations and conversation that Development and Property will have with the proponent, that it would also include a review of the scope, a review of the cost, and that if necessary, we bring a business plan back to this committee for committee and county council approval regarding the funding to continue with the project. Do I need to put up the pictures again? Or do we feel that we've seen the pictures?
Would anybody like to see the pictures again, or are we good to go ahead with the resolution? Looks like we're going to go ahead. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to approve the resolution as presented. Moved by Councillor Reinwald, seconded by Councillor Grills. Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. So Ms. Lapine, did you want to go ahead with your next resolution?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to committee. Item number 2 is a bylaw, and it's affordable supportive housing in Renfrew County. May I read the recommendation, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. The recommendation is that the Community Services Committee recommends to County Council that a bylaw be passed to authorize the clerk and the Director of Community Housing to execute the contribution agreement between the County of Renfrew, Renfrew County Housing Corporation, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So the background on this, it goes back again to that meeting of December 13th, where we talked about the integrated community housing complex that we had, received approval from the ministry with funds to build this housing unit on Lee and Douglas Street. And one of the conditions of the agreement with the ministry is that we enter into a contribution agreement, and we have that completed, and we're looking at the bylaw to authorize that. And that would be it. Open to any comments or questions. Thank you.
For the resolution, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Aguirre, seconded by Councillor Love. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Now I notice we have Mr. Morrow with us, and just before we move on to Ms. Patrick's report, Mr. Morrow, there was a question raised in our housing meeting as whether there would be a need based on the urgency and the tight timeline for a special meeting to move this resolution forward.
Is my microphone working or not?
Yeah, it's working. We can hear you.
And that was resolution number 1 in Laura's report, correct? The design of the affordable.
Yes.
I had suggested to Laura, I think this morning, Laura, I don't know what you've said, but I was suggesting that we would start the negotiation process with with William Sons, and then we would be asking or speaking to you, Chair, about a special meeting of RCHC Community Services prior to County Council. But I have not talked to the warden about that yet. We've only talked about that at staff level. And you know, we would want to talk about funding and what we were able to negotiate with the successful bidder on the project, and then bring that back in advance of County Council. So there would be one item, I believe, Laura, on that special meeting of Community Services, and that would be the discussion around where we landed with our negotiation process, in hopes we could have this committee's endorsement to the to County Council that same day.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
Consistent, Chair, with your thinking?
Yes, I believe that was the issue that was raised, is did we need the special meeting because of the urgency and the tight timeline?
Chair, I think that any time that we can find where we can have council's endorsement to move this forward and make an official award once it's negotiated, and we can get a shovel in the ground, saves us time on the other end. Because, you know, when I talked to Kevin Raditz, we are going to be up against it, even with a deadline to have the project completed by the province's guidelines. So anytime where we can advance this, I think we need to utilize that. And again, the special meeting of committee, I would highly recommend that. But again, I have not spoke to the warden about that, Chair, but I think I'm getting the sense that you would concur with that approach.
I certainly would, and I see we have the warden with us now, so I'm sure that's a conversation that you'll be having fairly soon.
Yes, sir, I will do that.
Warden, is there, you kind of got in on the tail end of that. Is there any information you need for clarification?
Well, I have absolutely zero knowledge of what the topic was. I do apologize for coming in late, and not to delay your meeting, Chair. I will get Paul after the meeting to bring me up to speed with the conversation. As long as my name wasn't being used in vain, I'm good.
Absolutely not. Thank you very much. So then we'll move on with the Ontario Works report, and Ms. Patrick, please.
Thank you, Chair Brose. Good afternoon, members of Community Services Committee. Through you, Chair, to committee. My report for this month starts on page 7 of your package. And item number 1 is a detailed report from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services regarding females on social assistance and some of their experiences while in receipt of social assistance. So as I mentioned, the report is quite comprehensive and does go through and document some information on demographics as well as outcomes. There's a number of interesting statistics that are shared throughout the report, which is attached as Appendix 1 for committee's information. But just to highlight a few of the points, not surprisingly, sole support parents on social assistance are more likely to be female. And female primary applicants generally have higher levels of education and higher rates of employment while in receipt of social assistance, yet conversely, lower rates of exiting social assistance. So we know that certainly some of this has to do with the lack of affordable and stable childcare. And there's certainly a lot of work being done right now by many levels of government to try to address that and try to make sure that there is, stable and affordable childcare that's accessible for all. Item number 2 in my report is to provide this committee with an update on our Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program joint client advisory groups. We have had this group on pause since the start of the pandemic. And we are pleased to say that we've been able to relaunch the group in a virtual format and held our first meeting on the 19th of January. So prior to the pandemic, we did have two groups, one for Pembroke and one for Renfrew, with 5 Ontario Works clients and 5 Ontario Disability Support Program clients that were part of each group. But we've launched this, as I say, in a virtual format as a larger group with 10 clients from each program. And our first meeting, unfortunately, not all clients that have agreed to be part of this group for the next year going forward were able to attend the first meeting, but those who did attend were certainly very engaged and very participatory. And we were really pleased to be able to be meeting again and starting to get some feedback on, you know, our services as well as both social assistance programs. So the minutes of those meetings are attached for committee's review. Normally we do have caseworkers that lead these meetings with the clients, but this group has requested that our management stay a part of the meetings. They certainly want to ensure that their voices are heard and that the input that they provide does get heard by decision makers and people that are in a position to bring about changes to the program. So we've certainly assured the group that we will be bringing the minutes of the meetings to our Community Services Committee meetings, as well as sharing them with the program supervisors from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. So we're very much, you know, looking forward to continuing with this group. The next meeting will be held in April, and we find that these are very valuable opportunities for us to learn more about how we can change and improve the client experience locally. Item number 3 in my report is to let this committee know of a new soup kitchen that has opened up in Pembroke. It's located at the Wesley United Church, and it will be operational on Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m., serving soup, sandwiches, coffee, and tea. And a local volunteer from the church has started this soup kitchen in the hopes of trying to assist those who are struggling with food security issues. They have indicated that everyone is welcome and no pre-registration is required. Item number 4 is regarding our Ontario Works financial audit. On the 3rd of February, Brian Mueller from Scott, Rosine, Black and Locke was on site to review 20 Ontario Works payments and did identify that all payments were issued accurately and in accordance with legislative parameters. And the final item in my report is the Social Assistance Highlights Renewal Letter, a newsletter. This is a bi-monthly newsletter that the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services produces to give an update on its many pilot projects and generally an overall update on where they're at in terms of the social assistance operating model that they are actively working on redesigning. So a couple of highlights from the newsletter. They are talking about just some language changes. Back in September of 2020, the ministry had announced the Social Assistance Recovery and Renewal Plan, which really spoke to their efforts to expedite clients' access to applications in order to provide an effective and prompt response during the pandemic to those who are needing to access financial supports, as well as the work that they're doing on modernizing the social assistance program. So they're indicating they're now shortening the term just to social assistance renewal, as they feel that the recovery part is now has been completed. In addition, there's a lot of language that the ministry is using around some of the supports that municipal staff will be providing. And they're changing the language from life stabilization to the provision of stability supports. So as we see, new directives and legislation come out and some of the memos from the ministry, this is the terminology that they will be using to describe the work that municipal staff will be doing. And that's the provision of access to health supports, counseling support, stable housing, and other things like that. And one final highlight from the newsletter, a new pilot project that our ministry is working on is the Digital Disability Determination Package. And this is part of the ministry's efforts to streamline and improve the application process for the Ontario Disability Support Program. Currently, the ODSP application is a very lengthy paper application. It's about a 25-page application that is given to clients to take to their doctors to fill out. It's then returned to clients to be mailed into the Disability Adjudication Unit in Toronto. And certainly my staff will tell you that this is a significant pain point for clients. It's very administratively burdensome. And I'm pleased to report that the ministry is looking to improve that by having a portal that's available for healthcare providers to complete the application digitally. And the report, the newsletter speaks to this pilot that's underway. And certainly even in our client advisory group meeting, this difficult application process for ODSP was discussed. So I think this is very positive, and hopefully this will be, some improvements will be able to be seen for clients and some reduction to the administrative process. Thank you, Chair Brose. That concludes my report for this month.
Thank you, Ms. Lapine. So going back to the beginning of your report, and information item number 1 is the profile of females on social assistance. Are there any questions or comments? Some very interesting information and statistics. Item number 2 is the Ontario Works Disability Support Program Client Advisory Group. Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair Brose. Through you to Andrea, I'm really thrilled to see this back in operation. I always enjoyed reading the minutes of the meetings prior to COVID, and especially because I think that, we try to make the best decisions possible, but we really don't know if we're doing the right thing until we ask the people who the decisions are impacting. And I know from the past that any of the comments that the people we are supporting provide during these committee meetings are acted on, or at least acknowledged. And I think that is so important, because the worst thing we could do is to ask people for their opinions and then just disregard what is being said. So I know that has not happened. In fact, just the opposite has. And having management in there is, if it's something that you're able to swing, I think that is absolutely fantastic. So just really happy to see it going again.
Thank you, Madam Warden.
And I would just add to that one of the items that was identified in that meeting and report was that a lot more of the clients are using the online information and some of the processes. So that certainly is a more efficient delivery of the service as well. So item number 3 is the Wesley United Church Soup Kitchen. Any questions? Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you. I came late to the party, but I have a lot to say, apparently. Just the soup kitchen, I think what's really important to note is it certainly will help with people who are struggling to find food, but I suspect that they will also have a lot of people who are just lonely and looking for company and a place to congregate with other folks. So it's when you see these type of things happening in a community, initiated because of the concern about supply of and access to good nutritious food. But there is that other side of it that just provides companionship and socializing that oftentimes people are lacking as well. So I'm it's nice to see this happening, and hopefully it'll continue.
Any other comments on item 3? Item 4 is the Ontario Works financial audit. Questions or comments? Seeing none, then item 5 is the social assistance renewal highlights. Maybe, Andrea, if you could just, because I know one of the conversations we had with the disability application process is that the current paper process can sometimes take 8 months to a year. And I think the plan is that this hopefully will certainly reduce that timeline significantly. anything from the pilots, or is it still too early to have that sort of information or feedback?
Thank you for the question, Chair, and through you to the committee. Yeah, certainly one of the concerns around the application process is the length of time it takes to receive a decision. Certainly, 6 to 8 months is the norm. That is, one of the primary reasons that most individuals who are in financial need come to Ontario Works first, and then our caseworkers will help them with the application, and they can continue to receive Ontario Works until a decision is made on their application for disability. And if they are found eligible, then their file is transferred to the other program. I think that certainly, part of what takes the time is the physical process of paper moving around, being mailed in. If parts are not completed, then there's another, mail back to the doctor asking for a supplementary form or an additional medical report to be provided. So I certainly think that the ministry is hoping that this will expedite the application process, as well as make it less administratively burdensome for all of the people that are involved, both the applicants and the healthcare providers.
Yes, Warden Robinson.
It's just slightly off topic, but I'm wondering, Andrea, when was the last time that funding was increased for OW and ODSP recipients? Because I think it's been a while. And if I'm correct in the amount of money people are getting, it's not even low income. It's poverty, and with the cost rising right now, and the cost of food alone, and gas and rent, at some point, the government has to take a look at what they're providing these folks. It's not sufficient. I mean, you're going to provide people with something to help them live, then it has to be something useful. When I look at what some of I think that a single person for ODSP is probably getting $1,100, maybe $1,200 a month. You can't find a place to if you could find a place to rent in the county of Renfrew, you're not going to find anything for less than probably $800 a month. That leaves you precious little for food, clothing, heat, hydro, whatever else. So, and as we know, then what happens is people end up cohabitating, not necessarily out of choice, but necessity. So I'm just wondering, when was the last time it was increased? And do you hear anything through the grapevine that the province would be considering increasing ODSP or OW? My final comment about that is that folks who use and need ODSP and OW seldom advocate for themselves. And I think that's part of our job.
Thank you for the question, Warden Robinson, and it's an excellent point. The social assistance rates have been frozen since 2018, so there have been no increases since that time. This definitely is routinely raised, by both clients and other service providers, as well as staff, of being, a significant concern. I have not heard that this is being under review by the ministry, and we've had a lot of consultation and a lot of meetings with community partners at the request of the ministry to get feedback on the new social assistance model. And really, they ask that the feedback is not about the rates, because at this time they're not changing. So I don't have any other update to report to you other than, it certainly is a significant challenge. You talked about the ODSP rates, for a single person being around $1,100 or $1,200, and for an Ontario Works recipient is even lower, around $700. So, very challenging to, to live on those amounts. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, we will move on to the Child Care and Early Years Division report. And I believe Ms. Lapine is doing that one as Ms. Mulvihill's on holidays.
Thank you, and through you, Chair to Committee. Yes, you're correct. Judy is away, and her report begins on page 38 of your electronic package. We have 2 items in there. The first item is an information item, and this, I think, is a good news item. And this is informing committee that with the recent announcements, and certainly I understand there's more announcements even today, but the early on programs, which have been in a virtual mode since the beginning of the pandemic, is going to be moving into a mixed hybrid of in-person and some virtual programming for our families and children throughout Renfrew County. So that's a good news story. And of course, our staff will be working alongside the early ons and the Renfrew County District Health Unit on safely following through on this. Item number 2 is a bylaw. Chair, may I read the recommendation?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. The recommendation is that the Community Services Committee recommends to County Council the bylaw number 49-17 be amended, authorizing the County of Renfrew to amend policies LHCC-01, LHCC-13, LHCC-17, and approve the addition of a new policy, LHCC-18, pet and animal policy, to the licensed home child care policies and procedures. The background is attached, but it's really an opportunity to do some housekeeping to update our policies and ensure that they're reflecting the most current information, including the immunization disclosure policy and, of course, the pet and animal policy. And that concludes the childcare report. I do have other information, but I'll let you finish, Chair, with this particular recommendation, and I'll add some information afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lapine. So can I get a mover and a seconder for the bylaw, please? Moved by Councillor Regier, seconded by Councillor Grills. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. And then just going back to information item number 1 is the early on program reopening and in-person programming. Any questions or comments? I agree, this is a good news story. And the one question I had was in regards to, are we at capacity yet in our childcare centers? And if not, do we have much room left?
Thank you, Chair Brose, and through you to committee. I can let committee know that we do our statistics every 3 months, but I can give you on childcare and such, but I can give you some recent numbers. As of the end of last week, we had 24 childcare centers open. And when we look at the pre-COVID times, we had 27. So we're close to having most of our centers open. Now, when it comes to our licensed homes, we have half of those open right now. 8 of our 16 are open and providing childcare. We have 1,109 children as of last week who are attending regular childcare, and that's down from our pre-pandemic time of approximately 1,558 children. We do have currently about 235 children who are on the fee subsidy wait list right now. We have another 27 of those children who are already approved, but are waiting for transfers into another center. And our staff are working with our childcare providers to assist them in, moving into full capacity. It is a process, given the last 2 years of being open and closed, and certainly still dealing with, the pandemic, in that we have some staff who have to be off work because either themselves or a member of their household is tested positive. But we're coming through the end of that now, and we're starting to see increased capacity. Hopefully that gives committee a bit of an idea of where we are in our childcare and where we're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Robinson.
Chair, I'm going to apologize because as you were calling for the bylaw, I was grabbing my other document because I had one that was revised, but the first one I had some highlights on that. So now I'm going to have to ask through you to the CAO, am I too late to make a comment about the bylaw that is just being passed?
Mr. Morrow.
Sorry, Chair. I think I'm having some internet problems.
You were frozen.
Yeah, my apologies. I think it's better now.
So the question was, the warden missed asking the question on the bylaw and it's now been passed. Is it too late to provide her comments or questions?
She can still provide her comments or questions, but the bylaw as is has passed. A member of the committee who has moved or seconded it can make the motion to rescind it and then start the debate over again. But you would need that motion to rescind.
Yes, Warden Robinson.
So do I make my comment and then see if people are interested in rescinding, or does the rescinding have to happen first?
I see Councillor Grills had her hand up, so I'm not sure. Were you planning to rescind, Councillor Grills?
My question was the same as the other Debbie's.
Well, let me, if I may, Chair, I'll ask the warden the question a different way. Will your comments or questions, what you're going to ask, would it lead to a change in what has been approved?
Would it lead to a change in the wording and an addition?
Yes, then you would need that motion to rescind.
So, Wendy, if you're there, I don't remember specifically who the mover and seconder were.
Regier and Grills.
Okay, so would you make a motion, Councillor Grills or Councillor Regier, to rescind your original motion to move?
I will rescind.
So just to make that motion to move that, yes, the current bylaw be rescinded. Yes. I'm looking at it. I'm kind of going by the seat of my pants here, Chair. I have the book in front of me.
As we are all.
2/3, Paul. 2/3.
Yeah, that's right. It has to be a 2/3 vote in favor. You need a seconder now?
Councillor Regier seconds.
Yes.
So it's been moved in second to rescind. All in favor? And that's been carried.
Okay. Back to your comment.
Warden Robinson.
And committee and chair, I do apologize. I was trying to get it up as quickly as I could. It's in reference to the pet policy and page 2 of the policy. And it talks about procedure due to an injury following a bite or a scratch, but then it says if deep enough to bleed. I don't know any of you that have cats, but a cat scratch doesn't necessarily bleed, but it does leave a mark and can leave a scar. And I think that if a child has been injured by an animal, either bite or a scratch, regardless of whether or not there's blood, I think we have to have a process in place. I agree with the process 1 to 4. Although I would like to see, so I guess my ask is that we remove the parentheses that say if deep enough to bleed. And my other suggestion is that under number 2, if anyone is injured by an animal, immediately contact the licensed home visitor, who will then notify the Renfrew County and District Health Unit and the local animal authority. I think that should be in there as well. And then the animal authority can then decide whether or not they have to respond. Those are just my 2 requests, sir.
So are you moving those changes?
Yes, I am.
Do I have a seconder? That's been seconded by Councillor Regier. Mr. Morrow, have you recorded those changes?
We will get that and done because I know where the warden is sitting right now, so we can follow up immediately following the meeting. We'll make sure that those are incorporated. Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I'll let you go ahead. I won't interrupt you. I'll let you call for the vote on that.
Okay. So you've heard the mover and the seconder for the additions and changes to the bylaw. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried.
And now, Chair, we would need a mover and a seconder for the resolution as amended.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Grills, seconded by Warden Robinson. All in favor of the amended bylaw? And that's carried.
Again, my apologies.
If I may, Chair, I made a mistake. I know everyone's shocked. If for the purposes of this minutes, rather than call it a motion to rescind, for the purposes of the minutes, would the committee be okay if we just made the change and called it a motion for reconsideration? Because that would have been the right thing to do. Got the book right here.
And we did have 2/3 in favor, so.
Yeah, no, we're all good that way. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So we don't need another resolution for that one. Great. So we will go back then to Ms. Lapine. She had some additional information that she wanted to provide, and I believe it's good news as well.
Thank you, Chair. Are you referring to new business?
We could do it under new business. So in that case, then I'll get a motion to adopt the community services report as a whole. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Any questions or comments on the report as a whole? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, Ms. Lapine, new business.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to take this opportunity to let committee know that we just received information from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. They are consolidating our Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative, which we call CHIPPY, the Strong Communities Rent Supplement Program, into one new program called Homelessness Prevention Program. And this is beginning as of April 1st of this year. We just received this information. We've been waiting for changes. It's good news in that they are consolidating these programs and they're providing more flexibility within the programs, giving a more streamlined approach and allowing service managers to be able to target where the community need is greatest and can make the most impact on funding. Our staff are working through the guidelines. It's quite a large document. We're working through the guidelines on how we are able to work on this new program. We've not seen any changes to our Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative, which we call COCHI, or the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, which we call OFI, or the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, which we call COB. Those funds are the same. There's no real change to, there's no change to these programs. We're just waiting on more information on the guidelines and other metrics. But the other thing that came in the information package was an announcement indicating that there will be more social services relief funding. However, the document indicates that more information, including our allocation and the rules and regulations and guidelines around that, are still coming. So I just wanted to let committee know that for April, we'll be bringing back a package of information for committee that will outline our allocation amounts and the proposed investment plans. We are required by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to put forward an investment plan for all the dollars that we receive, how we intend to spend it. And we like to bring this to committee and have committee provide guidance and direction on the investment plan. So kind of a heads up, it's a good news story in that we are being given a lot more flexibility than we've seen in the past, given an opportunity to determine local need, which is something that we have requested. in the past. I would say that all the lobby efforts that have taken place through the Warden and the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and AMO and some of the other groups in terms of reducing administrative burden and red tape is reflected in some of the documentation that we're seeing, as well as consolidating these programs. So just want to let you know that we just got it. We're just going through this, and we'll have a more fulsome report for committee in April. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Morrow.
Thanks for that, Laura. And Laura, I hope I'm not going to put you on the spot again. I know I do this to you all the time. So I read the guidelines last night. The investment plan needs to be submitted for April 15th. We just had a conversation about dealing with a special meeting of community services in advance of county council. Can you talk to us a little bit about the timing and how we're going to approach the submission and the approval of the investment plan by that April 15th date? Because it's a tricky time for us, because we will have committees, but we will not have it in front of county council. I guess what I'm asking is, will staff be able to put together the draft investment plan? And is that a second item that you would consider in advance of the March 30th county council meeting? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm trying to figure out the timing of how we're going to deal with this.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to Paul and committee. That's our plan, and staff are working on it right now. We're looking at the funding. We're wanting to make sure that the investment plan is put together and well thought out. So it is our hope that we do have a special meeting of committee, that we can have this in front of county council for the end of the month. That is our hope. Pending scheduling, of course, but in terms of having the information, it is our priority right now to ensure that we get this plan put together, because there is an opportunity to look at other ways to use the funding than we've had in the past.
Yeah, agree.
So yes, once we get approval for scheduling of a meeting later this month, we'll bring something forward. At the very latest, it's due to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing March 15th. So that is a very tight timeline, given that we just got it after hours on Monday. So it's very new.
Warden, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious, through you to Paul, our meeting on March the 30th is in person. Are we starting it at 10 o'clock or at 9?
Thank you, Chair. I had spoken to Rose before she went away for the week, and what we talked about was back to our normal time of starting at 10 a.m. So we would allow adequate travel time for folks to get to the building. And again, that does help us. Now, we'll be asking committee members to come probably for, my guess, it would be, 9:15. So we could have 45 minutes to discuss the two matters that we will have in front of us.
Thank you.
But don't hold me to that, because again, Rose is on vacation, and she'll probably tell me what to do when she gets back.
Without a doubt.
Well, we certainly look forward, and again, you're under the gun again, Ms. Lapine. I mean, it just seems that this money is so welcome, but boy, they sure don't give you a lot of time to plan for it.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our meeting. We have no closed at this time. The date of the next meeting will be Wednesday, April the 13th. So I'll need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Regier, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you all very much.